Rolling. Action. Hello.
Welcome to another episode of No Coffee with Karan,
where you have no coffee, a Karan,
and a Dhruv, and two new motorcycles.
So let's get started. Alright, so now it's that time again. I get to sit down with this man, compare two motorcycles, and I have with me the Hero Karizma ZMR. Now,
XMR.
XMR. Alright, I think it's time to put it against a proper rival, and that's where he comes in.
Because I have got with me the Suzuki Gixxer SF 250. It's not a long term, but I have ridden this motorcycle before, and I honestly believe if you're looking for a low displacement sport touring motorcycle, the SF 250 has no real rival, and I'm going to convince Karan about the same thing.
And if you have no patience whatsoever, there's a hint, maybe he does. So let's get started. We'll talk about the design first, the first impressions. Okay, I want to hear what you think about the Karizma quickly, and then a quick take of the Gixxer SF.
Okay, design-wise, I think Hero has knocked it out of the park with the Karizma. I think it's a safe design, yet it's something that is very appealing, also looks very... There's no bad angle to the Karizma, and that's what really draws you in. So I think design-wise, it's doing a good job.
And the SF, what did you think about it?
The SF, I mean, it's a very well-rounded design. It reminds you of it has this tinge of Hayabusa in it. I mean, a lot of people might not agree to that, but I look at the SF and find it to be a bigger looking motorcycle than what its displacement suggests. And with this MotoGP livery, I think it just looks aces in my books. What about you, man? What do you think about the SF first? Tell me that.
I thought the Karizma was a bigger looking motorcycle than what its displacement suggests, but then this came into the picture and you really get a perspective on bigger is always better. This looks bigger, this looks better, and I really liked what the Karizma had going for it with the design of this motorcycle. It looks pretty good, but the Gixxer SF is a tried, tested and successful design product, and
it still works.
Yeah, it still works. And if I had to give it a comparison, the feel, the vibes which I was getting in, if you remember in Dhoom, John Abraham had the Hayabusa, while Uday Chopra had the Suzuki Bandit. Both are big motorcycles, yeah, but you always were attracted to the Busa more.
Big black Busa.
Yes, so that's why I think in this fight the SF gets the points from my side.
So ergonomics, now that's a very important part, yeah, of any motorcycle, right? So I'm going to quickly start with you on what's your take on the Karizma's ergonomics?
Alright, so Karizma, when you first get on it, you will think that it is a pretty committed riding posture, and over time you'll get used to it. You'll realize that it is such a balanced product when it comes to managing. We got to test it on the track at our awards, and I got to experience it thoroughly on the streets as well, and I think it brings a very balanced riding position to both. The Gixxer SF, on the other hand, is a lot more committed. You have to get used to it. You have to like what the Gixxer SF has to offer. But I went from Karizma to Gixxer, whereas your journey was the opposite. What do you feel about the Gixxer and then getting on to the Karizma?
The Gixxer, I rode that motorcycle first for a decent amount of time, and my take on the Gixxer then was that it's a motorcycle that gets you into that optimum riding position very, very quickly. But optimum for what? Optimum, I think, for a more sporty riding experience. I mean, when you're trying to hoon about or when you're trying to attack corners, I think in that sense, the Gixxer SF immediately puts you in that position where you can start doing that. Yeah. In urban commutes, the thing is, because you're always in such an attack mode position, you have to slightly move on the seat, get into a more neutral stance to be able to deal with the city life better. And then when I went to the Karizma also has like similar ergonomics because it's got a wide seat like the Gixxer. You can actually scoot back, you can tuck in, all of those things are there. But I think with specifically the handlebar positioning, they've mounted the handlebars really high on the Karizma, so it doesn't really have you arching forward so much. And in that sense, the Karizma works better in the city life. It takes on the everyday grind very, very gracefully. It's only when you want to get into that attack mode do you actually have to kind of scoot in a little bit more, hunker down a little bit more, and try and make the most of what you can do of those high set handlebars. But overall, I think the Gixxer is kind of the one that gets you to, be a little bit naughty. The Karizma is actually the one which gets you to be a little bit more sensible.
I think I really agree with you. The Gixxer SF really hunkers you down, lets you grab the tank properly. The handlebars are sporty enough but not too overbearing. This is balanced. This doesn't let your arms get tired. Your leg position is pretty straightforward. Nothing exciting as such.
So before we move on to the next subject, I quickly want to put it to you because I'm trying to convince you here. Comfortable or sporty? Which one are you picking?
Sporty. What about you?
It's a Gixxer, man.
Alright, we both have unanimously agreed in terms of design and ergonomics, but fit and finish is also an important part of the conversation. Let's start with that.
And you have an Indian going up against a Japanese.
Yeah. And I think
you know where this is again heading.
Should we just skip over this?
I think we should just give a quick roundup of what's what.
You go ahead, get it done with.
I think hands down here, the Gixxer has a good enough advantage over the Karizma. The Karizma's quality doesn't feel shoddy or anything. It's just that when you put it next to the Gixxer's switchgear just feels a little bit more snappier. I think even how Suzuki has, covered up all the welds and everything with like bits of bodywork and stuff like that, and the paint quality just shines. I mean, this blue, it shines in the sun like that red is just not able to. It's only when you're putting these motorcycles next to each other where you're noticing these things, where the Gixxer's switchgear quality is coming out on top, the paint, it just looks wonderful. On its own, the Karizma XMR is not doing a lot wrong. I think the only big complaint I have is the exposed welds on the motorcycle, and I don't even mind exposed welds. It's just that please do them beautifully at least. Like, I can understand costs and everything, to keep down stuff, but I think in this area, the Gixxer has a decent enough advantage over the Karizma over here, I would say that. And even stuff like the visor that you get on the Karizma XMR, it's a you can actually move it a couple of places. It has different settings, but the switch to operate it is you just press it in, it refuses to come back out. So it's glitchy in that regard. There's no real one area in the fit and finish department where the Karizma is kind of going over and above the Gixxer. So I think we combined have to give this one to the Gixxer.
Yeah, Gixxer definitely has it. I think I definitely agree with this one. The Gixxer doesn't go overboard. It doesn't want to give you all like everything fancy, but whatever it has is just nicely finished. The switchgear feels really nice to operate.
And you're talking about, sorry to cut you off, and you're talking about the Gixxer doesn't go above and beyond to give you the fancy stuff. You're actually right about that, because if we bring features into this, the XMR has something like an auto headlamp feature, right, which the Gixxer does not get. Both of them have this LCD screen on them, but I think the Gixxer screen is just so much more legible all throughout the day, even in the night. And the Karizma screen, you have a hard time reading it during the day. So even on those fronts, Suzuki has tried to keep things simple, but get them right, get them bang on where they work. So I think we both can be on the same page here that the Gixxer is the better finished motorcycle of the two. So Karan, now the important part. The part that gets us motorcyclists going. The performance on off. The Gixxer is a 250cc engine, as we all know. The Karizma was initially a 225cc motor all throughout up until the ZMR. But with the XMR, I mean, yeah, they have one liquid cooled, but they have brought the displacement down to 210 cc's.
I mean, in terms of displacement, you do get 250cc, which makes 26 bhp, 22 Nm. This 210cc, 25.5 bhp and 20.4 Nm. So not too far off, but enough to make a difference. In terms of its engine performance, it's going to keep you really happy in the city. But once you start taking it out onto the highway, once you start trying to build speed, that's where it's going to let you down. Whereas the Gixxer I feel is a much more progressive performing machine. It builds speed and builds it nicely. It never leaves you wanting more. The Karizma always makes you want more.
So when I first got onto the Karizma, first time ever, I, like any other motorcycle, we just banged it through the gears and went to see how well it performs near the red line. And in that sense, I was left a little bit disappointed because the Karizma, it kind of builds,
Yeah.
and then you're expecting a lot at the top end, and it's not there. It's there, but it's in a very narrow rev band, so you're not really being able to enjoy the performance that much as you might like. On the Gixxer, I think you've got grunt all the way.
Just before we move on, I'd like to quickly tell the audience that the only reason we're talking about the power building up is because it falls so hard to the floor, the performance of the Karizma, that it gets a little overbearing. It builds really nicely and it just wipes it away.
Yeah, exactly. You're left wanting for more and then it's not there.
Yeah,
It's like you've been promised dessert at the end of the meal and then you get a
rock.
grape.
Yeah, a grape,
Yeah.
like throw a rock at your face.
Apple. I mean,
Apple, I'm talking about a rock on your face.
I'm talking about things
Like
you can eat.
Rajma chawal, you eat Rajma and I would throw a rock at your face. Would you like that?
Okay, so Karan clearly doesn't like the Karizma's performance.
No, I do. I mean, I do up to a certain extent.
The Gixxer, I think, has that pretty much sorted out. I think that the displacement, the larger displacement allows it to have grunt all the way through, and even at the top end, it's not manic, but it's there. It's a healthy addition to what it's already offering you in the mid-range. You never really, you can just start going in any gear. On the Karizma, you have to keep working the gearbox.
Like the extra performance is not just on paper. Every time either we had a drag race or he was in front with the Karizma and I was trying to catch up with the Gixxer, I always managed to catch him. But I didn't beat him outright.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a slam dunk.
Not a rock in the face.
It wasn't a rock in the face. It was more like a tissue box to the floor. Like that's what I call it.
Fair enough. But talking about gearboxes, what's your take?
That's one aspect where I feel is the Karizma's saving grace. You can bang through the gears very easily. It's a slick gearbox. The clutch action is light, and it's a good experience. You like going up the gears. It doesn't have the power, but you can really work the gearbox hard to keep it in the rev band, and that's what I like. But if I talk about the Gixxer, the calibration of the gearbox and the engine, I feel could have been a little better. It's because the performance of the Gixxer is better, is where I expected the gearbox to also be better when in comparison. And it's kind of let down because you can't bang through the gears that easily. And in terms of the gear spacing, the first and second gear ratios are just too short. Third and fourth is just too long. So it's a bit mismatched.
I think you know what they've done over there is just like the ergonomics, they've tried to make it a little bit racy. So I've observed this with the Gixxer that the closer you shift to the red line, the more snappier your gear shift is. But it's during city rides at 2000, 3000, 4000 RPM when you're trying to move, it trips over itself. And you kind of feel like the gearbox is getting in its own way. It's not really one particular thing you can fault about it. It's just that it doesn't want to shift gears at those RPMs. I think it just feels like that. And also on that front, I'll have to say one more thing, and that's the clutch. I think the clutch action on the Gixxer is a little bit more tighter than the Karizma. The clutch pull on the Karizma, it's very near. You just have to depress the clutch a little bit and you can very quickly get to the gearbox. On the Gixxer, you really have to bring in the clutch. The bite point is a little bit further away from where you'd want it to be. So you're actually working the clutch more than the gearbox, literally. So I think that's that one bit, I think, where the Karizma is truly making a break for it.
So I think in terms of how the gearbox and the engine calibration is done, the Gixxer I felt is two-sided, where you either in its sporty side or the touring side. The Karizma I felt was more multifaceted, where you could like use it in the city, you could use it on the highway. Like if you wanted to do a bit of sporty riding on the weekends, it'll do that for you as well.
Yeah.
So in this term, this was more accessible with its performance.
Definitely, I think.
But overall, I think still the Gixxer.
Yeah, I mean, this is truly where you will have to make a decision for yourself.
That's where I feel the riding position also fits these two motorcycles perfectly. This is you don't lean as much forward. You get to do a lot more with this motorcycle, whereas the Gixxer, it tends to make you lean towards a certain riding style. But again, it's objective. Let's just move on from here. Let's talk about the handling.
Before we do the handling part again, performance, what are you picking?
The Gixxer.
Again, the Gixxer.
Yeah, I think
Alright, now let's get to the handling part
clean
of it.
sweep. It's the design, it's the ergonomics, it's the fit and finish, and it's the performance. Should we bother going ahead?
Let's do that.
Okay.
So, handling. Now, I think this is one of the make or break areas for these motorcycles because they're calling themselves sport touring motorcycles which can do it all. So, you want them to handle well, right?
Yeah.
In that sense, now you've been doing Karizma first. First opinions on the Gixxer.
It's very stable. It has a very communicative front end. I think it's very pliant in how the suspension is set up. It's firm enough to always keep you engaged, but it's soft enough to never get overbearing in our roads.
Doesn't throw you around.
Yeah, it doesn't throw you around much. It tells you what the front end is doing. You always know where the front end is, how much inputs you need to put in. So overall, this is a bike which speaks to you a lot more, and it'll keep you more engaged. The Karizma also, I have no bad things to say. It's light. It tracks very beautifully down a highway at fast speeds. You throw it into a corner. That's where it tends to go a little out of shape in its rear end balance, how the monoshock is set up. The standard preload levels, I feel it's just too soft for me.
I think that's the overall theme with the Karizma, because even the front end for me, the thing with the Karizma is because you're sitting so comfortably, right? You're never really loading up that front end, so you're never really feeling connected with that front end, and that's something that then acts in a manner where you want to ride it less sportily.
Yeah.
And when you want to, then suddenly you're like, oh wait, I've got a nice set of corners around here. I want to attack these, and then you have to kind of change your position a little bit, which you don't have to do on the Gixxer. And then once you load up the front end, it actually does change direction pretty quickly, but then is the real chink in the armor, the softness. I think it's just too softly set up. Because sometimes the suspension wallows right in the middle of a corner, and it's not the I got it kind of a wallow, it's the okay, be careful here kind of a wallow, as you found out also yesterday. So, I mean, I think on that front, it's just screaming comfort a little too much in the handling department.
I'll just give it one more positive, where those handlebars of the Karizma are little protrude a little further out,
a little
so
wider,
so you get more leverage, and that helps.
I think that helps you in traffic where you can throw it around into gaps and all, but a long winding road.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to find positives here,
Yeah,
because we know where we're going.
I think what we need to say over here is, while the Karizma is not going beyond the Gixxer, it's not too far behind also. I mean, apart from that one...
in every aspect.
Yeah, in every aspect, that's it.
Yeah.
And with that, let's bring
it is alright, let's just get verdicts. I think I was just about to give it away.
Alright, Karan, we've gotten 2 calls from Manav to wrap up this video by now, so let's get to it. Which one are you picking? And keep in mind that this one is 23,000 more expensive than the Karizma.
I'm still picking the Gixxer. I think the Karizma is just too vanilla for my taste, and the Gixxer is just the right amount of chocolate. What about you?
I think, ladies and gentlemen, we have it there. Karan's picked the Gixxer. My work here is done. And if I had to pick one, it would also be the Gixxer, despite the fact that it costs a decent chunk of change more than the Karizma.
But the Karizma is not far behind. It is a competent product, but just not as good as the Gixxer. And with that, we come to the end of the video. Finally, I hope you guys liked what we had to discuss, what we had to say. Tell us in the comment section down below, which one do you choose? Which one would you rather have? And what is your riding style? Tell us in the comment section below. We'll see you guys real soon.
Karan, who's going to ask them to like, share and subscribe?
You.
Oh. So, if you like this video, obviously like it, share it with your friends, subscribe to the autoX YouTube channel for more such fun automotive content. Thank you so much for watching.